Okay, everyone. So to start the debate, I'm just going to give a brief intro, and then we'll get the ball rolling. Okay. So, sorry. As well. Can you all just, so we can all have a.
We want to engage you.
No, are you happy? Girls at the back, I know you just come. Come on, welcome. Join in the conversation. Yeah.
Just before that, there is a, if you can, please do utilize this Twitter. This is, if you want to use our generic one, we've got a generic username and password. Ahmed, you mind just clicking that? Thank you. Basically, IMM Twitter, that's the username, and IMM password, that's the password. So if you don't want to use your own Twitter account, if you want to stay anonymous, please use that. If you don't mind using your own Twitter account, then please just press hashtag IMM to join this discussion, inshallah. Okay? So basically, there's two ways you can engage in the Twitter debate. You can either engage anonymously, using that username and that password, or you can engage directly. Either way, the forum, you have to press hashtag IMMEM to join. The username is IMM Twitter. Twitter. And the password is IMM password. Okay? Is that clear for everyone, inshallah? Yeah? Okay.
Okay. Is it too loud? No, no, it's okay. and yeah, that's normal. Okay, so I'd just like to say a few things. Basically, a lot of the Iraqis that are here now, who initially settled here, like our parents, our grandparents, they came because they had to, and there was always a view of going back. They stayed, mainly due to political circumstances, and then this stay became indefinite, it became extended. And currently, in spite of all the changes that have happened, in spite of an improvement in security, not many people have gone back. We remain here as a community. So as a result of this prolonged stay of our parents, we are now a new generation of British Iraqis. Some of us have never lived in Iraq, some of us have spent most of our lives here, and some may not feel more than just a cultural link to Iraq. So sometimes, we might find ourselves asking ourselves, where do we belong? Do we go back to the country of our forefathers, or do we stay here in this country, continue to establish ourselves, where we've had an education, we currently work, we're quite in the system, and a lot of us feel actually quite British as well. We also need to think about the long-term consequences, okay? So.
Everyone, you'll find underneath your chairs, inshallah, 3 pieces of paper, a red card, green card, and a feedback form, okay? If you wouldn't mind just kindly picking them up at the moment. I just wanted to initially start with a kind of poll just to see what kind of audience we have at the moment. The way I would like to start is by, can everyone please raise up either red or green initially. Red will normally mean no, and green will normally mean yes, but when we're just having a show of hands, it doesn't really matter. So initially, can I just know who was born here? If you could just raise up your cards just to say a show of hands. 1, 2,
That's
3.
green for being born here, red for not being born here.
That's fine. So roughly, about half of you were born here, fine. Who spent the vast majority of their life here? And that includes people who were born here. So maybe about 90% of people have spent the vast majority of their life here, fine. And how many of you are really planning to eventually go back to Iraq? Like, realistically, I mean, not if the situation becomes utopia and Imam Mahdi comes down, I mean, realistically, okay? So we're talking about, all right, roughly 40% of people, 30 to 40%.
So hang on, these the people who are holding up the reds, is that a no? That's a definite no.
That's a
Okay, and the
definite.
greens are a yes. Can we do that one more time so it's clear?
Do it again. Everybody, are you planning to go or not? If you're not planning to go, put a red. If you're planning to go, put a green. Okay, so even less. Maybe 15% are planning to go. What's that? Holiday?
Holiday.
Oh, no. Holidays aren't counted. No. But if you want, we can do a poll on holidays at the end, inshallah. Okay? All right? Because we're looking to go on one. You can give us some ideas. All right? Okay. All right. So now I would like to open to the floor. And the way I'd like to do this is by having each individual who wants to say something put their hand up. And then I'll pass the microphone to you. Or Safa will pass it to the ladies, inshallah. So I want to ask the first question is, where do we belong? And and if you can actually say why you think that we belong in a certain place, that'd be great. So who would like to start to discuss this question? Ali Shkara, okay. So.
First of all, just want to clarify, it's not my birthday, unlike as the Twitter feed says there. In regards to the question, in my personal opinion, I think that those who are born here, or if not those who are born here, but those who have lived here most of their lives, have been too accustomed and too attached to the social institutions that form people and society. And for that reason, I think it will be incredibly difficult, it may be quite naive of us, to think of going back and living permanently in Iraq, at least anytime soon. Those who want to die there, that's like not very, that's not, it doesn't, sorry, it does not, it's not included in this discussion, I assume, right? Because there are some people who want to die in Iraq, but they'll live here for the rest of their lives. We're not talking about that, are we?
No, we're talking about living.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Dying, inshallah, we're all buried there, but so we're talking about life.
Yeah, absolutely, while we're alive, yeah. So the point is that it's too difficult and it's not any point. And I don't think that we would benefit Iraq that much if we came and brought our ideas that we have been accustomed to, that we've been too used to in this, not just this country, but in the West in general. There are some defining differences between the East and the West. And, those who were born in Iraq, those who have lived in Iraq, they would benefit Iraq more than us, in my personal opinion. And we're better off staying here and making a valuable, very valuable contribution to Western society, not just on an economic level, but even on a religious and spiritual level, because there is a huge spiritual religious crisis going on here. So, we can provide many, many benefits here, whereas going back to Iraq, I personally don't think so.
So who would disagree with that opinion? Does
Or
anyone
agree?
think that actually it would be more beneficial to go to Iraq rather than stay here?
I thank the brother for his views and for such an important opening comment. He had a number of, my name is Haval Kadhim. The comment about us being not useful for Iraq, I think it's slightly simplistic in the sense that we are, as a society and as a community in the West, have gained some useful values from the West, but we have maintained, I hope, our values from our culture. And we would be a fantastic bridge to the society in Iraq and bring it forward. As such, I think it's our duty to go back one day, but go back with experience. Don't go back with ideologies that they are wrong and we are right. Their experiences back in Iraq are as much valuable as our experiences are in the West, and vice versa. And I think by working together, we will benefit ourselves and our community more.
So, Haval, do I gauge that your response, which I thank you for, is more out of duty, but do you think the point that Ali made, which was on the basis of benefit, which one is more beneficial for us? Is it more beneficial for us and society as a whole, where we're living, to be here and to engage with the current society, or is it more beneficial for society in Iraq and ourselves to go back to there?
It all depends on what your experiences are and what your level of support that you can provide to the country. For example, as an engineer, I believe I can serve my country better by being in Iraq and working in the system there. If that means tackling corruption, if that means tackling the system, then so be it. Now, this might be simplistic because I haven't been there and I have not experienced it. However, I think there's better gain there than here. If you're a professor, what use is it you teaching the students here in the West when your students in Iraq are in dire need for you?
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone who wants to say anything to that? I'm just going to refer back to Ali, then I'm going to open it up to the floor a bit more, so I want people to think of
Just
answers.
before you say that, I've got one question. What about the point that was on the Twitter fall, that the people there will not accept us? They will not accept the people coming from outside, and that, like, there was a comment there that we have to shout louder than them, for example. Does anybody think that that would be a problem? Yeah. Okay,
Sorry. First of all, Haval, mashallah alaik, mahboob. Also, I think Haval is absolutely right, but I think also his view is a bit simplistic in the sense that by going back to Iraq, we bring our values, we bring the ideas that we have inherited here in the West, but unfortunately, it'll be like a drop that's going to be lost in the desert. Because the ideas that we have inherited here, you know, if we're talking about, for example, things that we take for granted, we are respected as human beings here. We have, you know, we have human rights, which is something that is not really, you know, people see in a different way in Iraq. And freedom of speech, for example, these different values that we have, if we were to go, and by the way, I think that these ideas are instilled very deeply in British society. And it shapes so much of what we do, how we work, how we live, the transport, how we engage with everyday life. These values are deeply, deeply instilled. And so to go from here to Iraq, to try and bring some benefit to Iraq with the values that we have learned, for example, I think it would not be of much benefit unless there was a real movement in Iraq, a real social and dynamic change going on in the direction of something more democratic, if you like, on a political level at least, which will filter into different areas of society. If that movement did occur, and if it was happening in Iraq, which can only be done, in my opinion, by the Iraqis themselves, be it the politicians or be it the people, only then would we be able to come and accelerate that movement towards a more beneficial and a more prosperous Iraqi society. But at this stage, I think it's very, very difficult. And the way that Iraq is going, in my opinion, I don't think it will be beneficial for us to go anytime.
Thank you, Ali. Thank you for your comments. And just picking up on Twitter, specifically Mohammed Barakez, our duty to the country that sheltered us. So it's an opposite duty rather than duty to our homeland country. What about duty to the country that sheltered us? And what about duty to the community here, to us, to our children, to the elderly people in our population? Does anyone have any thoughts about that?
Assalamu alaikum, my name is Mohammed Amin. I think, some of us think we have a duty to this country, which is really wrong. The country that actually sheltered us more than you think this country sheltered us. Well, this is only one lifetime, but a country that really sheltered us is the one that sheltered our dads, our granddads, our great-great-granddads, and furthermore. And this country doesn't really shelter us. It shelters you, but on the cost of your brothers back home. That's secondly. And the British, like, can I just do a card? Something to do with the cards. Does anyone here support the English football team? Yeah? So the flag you're supporting is the same flag that went into Iraq and killed many of us, civilians. If you don't, I think the only place someone should be able to feel home is and if you're Iraqi, it should be Iraq. The rest I don't.
Okay, any of the ladies have anything to say?
Assalamu alaikum. With regards to the initial comment, I wouldn't say it's as simple to completely rule out a possibility of returning to our homeland. And I think definitely to say that our skills are useless there or they won't be accepted I don't accept it, because I think there are many initiatives in place at the moment to take on board the skills of graduates from the UK to work in Iraq, to take part in projects that are taking place there. At the same point, I'd sort of like to pick up on the second speaker and say, if we think constantly about returning to Iraq, we're going to be constantly feeling in sort of unstable, and any projects or initiatives that we want to do for the generation here or the next generation, we're going to constantly feel a sense of, let's delay it, we'll return, we don't need to do it now. So then we're going to have a problem with our next generation, maybe not for our generation, but the next one living here. So I think we need to think further ahead and sort of make a decision. Will it be back to Iraq or will it be to stay here?
So you think it's either
I think we're in limbo at the moment. We don't know as a community. I think if we make a decision to stay here, then we need to make a conscientious decision, and that means that we need to start initiatives, start projects, and that's why I think the Iraqi community, in comparison to the other Muslim communities in this country, they don't have any stability really. They don't really have many successful projects at the moment.
Okay, thank you very much. So you think you're more to the opinion of that it's either a black or a white. Yeah. You either go or you don't go. Yeah. So okay, that's fine. Anybody has anything to say about that?
Just before then, can I just repeat it? Please do use this Twitter. Again, if you can use it anonymously by logging in with the username IMM Twitter. And then the password is IMM password. If you don't mind using your own Twitter account and you have one, then it's just #IMMEM to join the discussion. Thank you. So anyone else got any other views? Sorry, gentleman with the glasses.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Sorry. My name is Abdul Hamid Al-Araji. I lived most of my life in Iraq, so I think the big problem for the generation who born in the West in general to understand what Iraq they talking about. Most of Iraqis live here. Either all their information either from TV or from parents, or they go to visit, like for to understand if you can benefit the system in Iraq or not, you have to understand the system there. You have to understand, for example, if somebody wants to work as engineering, you have to be understanding what's that system. Can he be fit there or not? Because even if you have the skills and the system doesn't accept you, there is no any benefit there. The other issue is Iraqis in general are very sensitive to foreigner. So there, if they accept any Iraqis who born or live most of his life in the West, he will be accepted as Iraqi again or not? That's another issue.
What do you think, brother? Do you think if we went back, that we would be accepted?
I went last year to visit Iraq. I will say it's very difficult. You have a big challenge. It's not impossible, but you have to sacrifice a lot to be fit again with the system, or make system fit with you. Either way. Shukran.
Thank you. Anybody else got any other remarks to add to that? Abu, tafadhal.
Assalamu alaikum. My name's Abu Dhar. Just want to pick up on the brother's comment over there. He spoke about sheltering of Iraq from our previous fathers. The whole point is that Iraq didn't shelter us, and that's why we had to come here. So if it did shelter us, then we wouldn't be here in the first place. So it's not really actually looking at it like that. It's not a factor of sheltering. This isn't just a question of sheltering. What the person was referring to is the place that actually you were foreign to the UK and they provided you with a place. It's not that you were provided with a place that you actually lived in or were born in. It's that you were foreign to a place and they provided you shelter and they gave you a home or whatever facilities that they've provided you in this country. So I think that's what they were referring to, not the idea that that this country was sheltering you in some other way.
Anybody else? Any ladies? No? No ladies for the moment? Okay, well, we'll go to Ja'far Rubai.
Thank you. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. My name is Ja'far Rubai, as you said. I just want to say, you know, I've for 20 years, and I do feel this country is my home. I'd love to go back to Iraq. You can't see it obviously working right now because the current systems, whether it's political, the social system, everything just doesn't seem is working. Doesn't seem to be working in Iraq. So for the meantime, be here and try to make the most of it. There's so much opportunities here. And this is what you've got to look at. You've got to look at your life and you think, you know, obviously I have more opportunities here and make the most of it. The most important thing I believe is for future, if Iraq doesn't settle, the most important thing is that you raise a good family, that you have, you know, good, you have a strong base, whether it be Islam, you know, most importantly that, you know, it's firm roots, going, you know, Islamic roots basically, strong pillars, and make sure that no further dilution takes place. Although it's natural that we, you know, slowly start losing our, whether it's, you know, losing our culture, losing sometimes our, if I can say, identity. We lose our identity. It's only natural, and it's up to us, which is I think the most hardest thing is it's for parents. To raise, you know, a good family who are followers of Ahlul Bayt. Thank you.
Thank you, Ja'far. Can I just pick up on what the kind sister and Ali Latif have mentioned, which is a bit more long-term thinking. So Ja'far, if I understand, you're talking more about the now and present and near future, but I think from what Ali Latif and the last sister speaker was alluding to was more longer term thinking, setting up maybe institutions, social or otherwise, because at the moment we're, as she mentioned, in a state of limbo perhaps, where, you know, we're thinking about our families and our current future and our lives, but we're not maybe looking at the next generations. What are we doing for the next generations who are here? Even if we've got intentions to go back, is anything being done to help those who are not intending to go back? And if we aren't going back, then what's stopping us? So, you know, I think if we can maybe talk about...
Another thing to think about also is if we do stay, then what's to guarantee that we will keep hold of our Islamic values? And what's, you know, is it even possible? Is it possible to have a community here where we do not forget where we came from?
Ali Latif, تفضل.
Okay, I think there's several models you can follow because the way we've got it now is we, as the sister rightly said, we're in limbo. So the next generations are going to be as more lost, and I think they're going to be assimilated rather than integrated into this country because we don't have a clue what we're doing here. There are other models. For example, the Jews have existed here and retained their identity for hundreds and hundreds of years because they know that they were going to stay. The Khorjas, likewise, they've got a model where you actually retain your identity but live as a minority. Now, there are issues with that. They're very isolated and very contained themselves, but we come up with a sustainable model in this country and make a decision that we're staying. Our children are going to be totally lost. Unless we control the way we integrate into this country, they're going to choose for themselves, and then, you know, bye-bye Iraqi community in the country, in the UK, for example. Look at, for example, maybe some of the Indians, some of the Turks. You know, they've totally assimilated in the wrong way, and we're heading down that path whether we like it or not.
Sisters, how easy or difficult is it for us to be here, to wear hijab, you know, wear it proudly, to explain to everybody, you know, how sustainable do you think it is for us to stay here? Or alternatively, do you feel that everything is you know, that this country has actually given us a lot of freedom and has given us an education and an opportunity to really come into ourselves? Anybody have anything to say about that?
Assalamu alaikum. Just to answer your question specifically, it's not easy as a muhajjaba in this country, because as much integrated as we all are into society, at the end of the day, when I go to work, and I work just outside London as a doctor, people will always stop and look at me differently. You know, their first impressions of me will make it hard for me to feel sort of truly British. However, just my presence there, and after a while, when they see your manner and they see that, you know, there's a lot of positive things about you, you've sort of done your da'wah in a way. So it's hard, but there's a lot of good things that we can achieve by going out into society. And I think the whole answer to this question is not black and white. I think partly it's very individual. Our aim in life should be Amr bil Ma'ruf wa Nahy anil Munkar. It should be trying to influence society in a positive way. And if we feel that's in Iraq, then we should go to Iraq. If we feel that's here, then we should stay here. But just talking about it is not going to achieve anything. And while we are here, going on what everyone said about institutions, we need to really establish ourselves much better. We need to recreate a community that was there when we first came to this country in a way, but has been sort of diluted, so that our children, while we are here, are able to still get a sense of being Iraqi, but British Iraqi. It's a different kind of Iraqi.
How would you envisage that happening? How do you see that happening?
Well, I mean, we need to use centres such as this and reignite them and, you know, bring them back to life. Have all the, you know, talking about the Khojas, they've got a system in place. They have, they bury, they have their own cemetery. For goodness sake, we don't have ours. We have to use theirs. Very, very basic things that we have not established in all our time in this country. That we need to sort of look to better. I think it needs people committed. It needs people to rise up and say that, you know, I can't just sort of be one of the numbers. I need to be counted, and I need to make an influence, positive influence for the future generations.
Sister, what do you think has been stopping us from establishing ourselves? Because this is a key point that you bring. You know, if you know, Amr bil Ma'ruf wa Nahy anil Munkar, but at the same time, you mentioned something about you either kind of maybe do the best here, or you go to Iraq and do the best there, but you do the best wherever you are, and that there are things that you mentioned like the Khojas have that we haven't got in spite of us being here for so long. So what do you think has been...
Well, maybe partly it's a part of being Iraqi that unfortunately we're not, should I say this, a bit racist, but not organised enough and not, you know, sort of, I don't know, maybe not as patriotic or into our community as the Khoja. I think also it hasn't helped that our fathers' generations came here thinking that they were coming temporarily. They came here with always the view that they were going back, and we had that view as well when we were younger. As soon as Saddam goes, we're all going to go back. And that sort of held us back a little bit. It made us feel like we were only visitors in this country rather than established. Now that we know that most of us will stay here, realistically, you know, some of us might go back if they see an opportunity, and I think that's absolutely fine. But the ones that are here have to sort of really think about how we're going to establish ourselves further.
Thank you. Can I just have another show of hands? Who intends to go to Iraq again? Who's planning to, inshallah, go back to Iraq or go to Iraq if they've never been there? No, permanently, inshallah, to relocate and settle there.
Who at least likes the idea?
Say in 5 to 10 years' time. Yeah. Who's eventually? So two of you, three. Three
Not
people.
very many.
Four people. Okay. Can I hear from those who are intending to go? Mohammed, do you mind saying a few words? I just want to know what's holding you back. Why? You know, because if you want to go, you know, why? You know, not to sound rude, but why are you still here? What's the main thing that's holding you?
What? Sorry, can you repeat that?
I just think, inshallah, you're intending to go back, and that's your niyyah. But what's holding you back at the present? What's the main thing that's stopping you from going?
Well, I think the most important thing for myself is once I go there, what am I going to do? No one's actually opened the door or opened their arms and said, come and help us. So I will only go there once I can guarantee myself a quality of life that's similar to the one I've been used to here. So I'm not planning to go next year or the year after, but eventually I would like to go there. And if I have, let's say, once I have children and a family there, I know deep in my, deep between me and myself, once they reach a certain age, I'll send them here to carry on and finish their education. I still wouldn't trust the Iraqi system. So what's keeping me here? It's, I think, opportunity. There is no opportunity for me at the moment in Iraq.
Hypothetically, just to ask you another question, if there was the opportunity, I mean, do you really think you'd ever have the same quality that you have here? I'm not saying would you have more or less, but don't you think it would be different? You're used to a certain way of life, even the weather, even the water, the electricity, other amenities.
I think my perspective might be different because I've already actually left the UK to go and work abroad in a third world country for the past 5 years. So for me, that's not a problem. If you want and if you're capable, you can secure yourself a certain quality of life. Let's say maybe the weather is going to be hot over there, but it's not going to be as wet as here. So there are always advantages and disadvantages. I mean, the UK is a wonderful country with a lot of opportunities. As Ali said, it's got human rights, respect, all these things I agree with 100%, but there's also negatives you can list that might not exist in other countries. So for me, Iraq is the homeland of my father and mother, and what attracts me to Iraq is probably the shrines of Ahlul Bayt more than anything else. So, and we need to broaden this debate because there are Iraqis here who are maybe not here with us now, but who are not non-religious, who might be Christians, and they also have a role to play. So, whose homeland is Iraq really? Do you understand?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't a country 100 years ago, and there's always been people there who have been persecuted historically, and if a geographical piece of land on this earth doesn't provide you with anything, why should you continue calling it a homeland?
Yeah.
So you're of the opinion that we have no responsibility, and so you don't think we have a responsibility to a country, to our country?
I can ask you, what responsibility do you have towards this country? You know, I see.
And I would I completely see your point.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that you should or not.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is, do we have a responsibility? I'm asking everybody here, do we have a responsibility to our homeland, even with the knowledge that it has, like you said, it hasn't given us anything really, except culture and a lot of other things.
I think we do have a responsibility, but we need to get the opportunity to exploit that responsibility.
So how is that going to come about? How would it come about? Does anybody have any views on that? What do we need to do in order to make that happen?
Well, just an answer to the last question there. I think that, in terms of for the change to happen, I don't think it would, we as individuals going there, okay, I personally don't think it would benefit much. I really believe that has to happen on the ground in Iraq. Whether from here we can influence those changes in some way or form, I think that'd be great, but I genuinely believe that for the ground to be fertile for people like us with an Iraqi and a British identity to go back to Iraq, we have to, we have to be able to assimilate. We have to be able to comfortably integrate and provide our services. But I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. It can happen, and if it does, I'd be happy to go. I would definitely be happy to go. That's my personal answer to to that question in terms of, it has to happen there. But I want to make one or two points. Number one, there is an issue here, okay, which is, I think is at the heart of a lot of this discussion, which is nationalism. I am Iraqi, or I am Iranian. This idea, okay, is a relatively new, I'm going to call it ideology, which only came into the Muslim world like in the 19th century. And this Arabism, Arab nationalism, all these different forms of nationalism, kind of like collapsed with the 1967 war, the 6-day war between Israel and the Arab countries. This sense of nationalism, I don't think is correct. I genuinely believe in the love of homeland, but homeland and nationalism are two different things.
Maybe for another time, Ali, we can discuss that.
But my point is, okay, that everyone has to ask themselves, where is your homeland? Okay? If you genuinely ask yourself and identify your homeland with Britain, then I think that's it, or at least your town or whatever. If it's going to be Iraq, that's up to you. But how do you identify your homeland? And just another thing, you mentioned something about your Islam, not being corrupted, or Muslims being corrupted here, because the values that in British society are not very coherent with Islamic ones. I think that that's a standard clash, a typical clash between secularism and religion. It's not just happening to the Muslims; it's happening to the Christians and the Jews. But I think they've got used to it a lot more. We still haven't got used to it, and there's a lot of tension between the British or the West and religion, and in particular Islam. So, but this tension is ongoing. But there is some playing about here. I mean, people are slowly beginning to adapt and accept certain ideas, from the Muslim world. And there's who knows what to say. So who knows what's going to happen in the future? But there is, something going on. And it's too early for us to say that if we stay here, we'll corrupt ourselves, corrupt our children. It's difficult, but who knows?
Just to clarify, I didn't mean corruption at all.
I know you weren't saying corruption, but I'm implying that.
No, that there is that view, but I think in a way you can't really live in a country unless you adopt some of the way that they do things.
Absolutely.
Or when in Rome, do as the Romans.
Absolutely.
However, there's no reason why we cannot, keep hold of our values and of our religion as well. I think that's.
Any sisters would like to say anything? Because the brothers are having a disproportionate amount of the time. We're trying to distribute it evenly. You're making it a little bit difficult for me to do so. Just a tiny bit difficult. No? We'll come back to you, don't worry. Any other brothers? Yeah. Yasir, تفضل أنت.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam.
Well, the question we need to ask is our duty towards Iraq or is our duty towards Islam? In essence, that we're living in this country, we've been brought up in this country. I see our role towards da'wah, we can do more towards this country than if we go back to Iraq itself. In essence, us integrating within society, going to work, studying, we're representing Islam in the manner that most Muslims in this country, unfortunately, what I've seen, are misrepresenting. And I believe it's our duty to be able to represent Islam in a way where it shows Islam in a good light. And if we keep thinking, should we go back to Iraq, should we go back to Iraq, as most of people have indicated, that we're not settling here 100% as other communities have, and we're not trying to represent Islam and madhab Ahl al-Bayt in a manner where it will influence this society. Initiatives like the IMM, for example, is a good starting point, but unfortunately, the problem that we have as Iraqis is there's a lot of tension between us. We don't support each other in initiatives like this. We need to be able to decide and say to ourselves, are we going to make an impact in this country? Are we going to have enough representation in the different formats in politics and so on to be able to represent Islam? And that is the question we need to ask ourselves and say to ourselves, where does our duty truly lie?
Thank you for that. Yeah, so it's a slightly different dimension on what a lot of people have mentioned, but specifically talking about Islam, and rather than where do we belong in terms of country or land, what does Islam what would be the Islamic position? I think obviously there's a divergence of opinion on that, but from a benefit, the point that Yasser's making of more benefit in this country from an Islamic perspective to society might be something that would be...
So not just particularly this country, but this country gives you a platform to influence not just this country, but Europe and the West, where Iraq, for example, won't give you that platform.
Yeah. Thank you for that. And just this brother.
Assalamu alaikum. There is a myth that ethnicity can be inherited from your parents. This is, I think, a very pernicious myth. It has resulted in sort of the idea of, as has been mentioned earlier, Jewish ethnicity, which ultimately resulted in the state of Israel, which cannot be seen as anything other than a colonialist regime. There's also another myth which states that ethnicity is down to the individual identity, whether you identify with. This is also another myth. There is an objective way to assert identity, and this is language. Whatever your native language is, that is your identity. If, for example, our parents mainly, their native language and their only native language is Arabic. They speak Arabic. Not only they speak Arabic, they speak Iraqi Arabic. So they are Iraqis. They came to England, or Britain rather. And a lot of us were either born here or grew up here. And we had two languages, Arabic and English. Both of them being native languages, both of them being languages that we grew up with and we speak fluently and without any problem. If we stay here, our children, they will have more English than Arabic. Their children will have even more English. This is the process of integration until you come 5 generations down the line and there's not one dot of Arabicness, there's not one dot of Iraqiness, because they speak only English. They're not capable of interacting with Arabic society. That's my point.
Thank you, brother. So you're coming more from a linguistic perspective. We've got the brother at the back there. And sisters, I haven't forgotten you.
First of all, I think discussion is quite boring. I think we need to talk between amongst each other rather than everyone giving their comments. It's not going to get us anywhere. But to chip in to all the comments that have been made, from my own experiences and very limited experiences with Iraqis in general, I feel that first of all, our identity to Britain is a bit baffled. We're a bit confused. And this was raised recently in an event where do we even feel British? Let alone Iraqi, do we even feel British? We don't, one person mentioned, I mean, did we even get involved or were we even enthusiastic about issues such as the tuition fees which were raised? Obviously this would have an effect on our children. Come what may, they may be paying 9 grand a year, which will start this year, I believe. And they're saying that they'll be in debt, 40 grand in debt. So these are issues that will affect us. Maybe it's because we don't have that foresight. We can see that, as I mentioned earlier, we can see that through our centres. Just recently there was a centre that was purchased on Wilson High Street for 600k, and the idea behind that was that we didn't have a mukhtasal for our dead people. And if we analyse our centres, we do have that. We have over, just the other day I was counting how many centres we have in Wilson. We have over 8. Forget it being over 8. So we do have the facilities there, but yet we saw ourselves, I'm not trying to pick on any organization or individual, but as Shia Iraqis or whatever, we saw ourselves, we saw the need that we had to purchase a center. If we go deeper and we analyze that, we see that this is about us trying to show who we are. I'm diverting away from what I wanted to say. I want to say, look, we don't have our identity based here. We're very much integrated into our own community, and I think we're comfortable like that. I'm speaking as an individual as well. We're comfortable like that. We're comfortable in our own environments, in our own community. We don't want to expand ourselves into a different community. And our parents, our neighbors, how many of us engage with discussions with our neighbors? I mean, just the other day, my neighbor, she started engaging with me randomly, so I just started engaging back with her, speaking to her about various issues, about Iraq, about Islam, everything, asking very simple questions. Can we go out for lunch? By the way, this is an elderly woman, So can we go out for lunch? I told her, look, I can go out, but you know, the food has to be halal and all that stuff. And she's like, why does it have to be halal? You know, this is disrespectful to me. But I was like, no, I explained to her the reason. So what I'm trying to say is that we need to expand ourselves. And to the person that mentioned taxes, I mean, taxes are obligatory on us, first of all. We have to pay our taxes. And I feel as a community, or Iraqis in general, there's this mentality. Should I stop?
I think if you
please stop me. I want to get ripped, so please stop me.
No. If you wanna, what's your point at the end? If you wanna
okay,
summarize
should I finish?
it, yeah. Summarize it.
What do you mean we're civilized?
No, just
it's
no,
boring.
If it's boring, you know,
I completely agree that there should be a discussion. But
I'm trying to initiate a discussion,
exactly,
so you know.
Exactly.
We appreciate that, and but what I would like is if you could summarize what.
Oh, should I summarize? How should I summarize? I'll start and finish, but if we summarize, how can we summarize? Okay, to summarize, you know, many Iraqis still to this day use and abuse this country, and when I say that use and abuse, I mean, you know, fraud, various other. We don't want to mention that. I mean, as our generations continue to go down the line, that will eventually disappear. We will start paying our taxes. We'll be more integrated to society. It's happened with other communities. So right now, where we are at, I think we are in a bit of a lingo. Do we go back to Iraq? Do we not go back to Iraq? And I know, obviously, these are issues that we need to discuss and talk about rather than everyone giving their comments, standalone comments.
I think that's kind of why we're here. But you know, I appreciate your comments. Can we just go to Ma'ad, please?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Assalamu alaikum. Just one comment. I do agree with the brother said. We do have the problem that we need to have this image of belonging. I belong to something material, a country, money, something like that. When we have this ideology, when we do it, well, I belong to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In a way, I kind of open the border. I don't think I have to be Iraqi. I'm Iraqi here living in Britain. The other thing is, as a woman living here, being educated here, expressing myself, coming to these kind of discussions, and thinking going back to Iraq where you will not have this kind of freedom. To be honest, when you go there, the only thing that I went there is going to ziyarah or going with family. And you want to go out, you can't go out. You have to go with someone. You can't go. You can't express yourself because you have to think. These are political groups. These are other people. So in a way, we are as a Muslim living here. I feel that I can express my religion and express my opinion better in this. So therefore, if I will have here children, or I will have my own family, I will teach them in a way that they understand Islam and they can practice and live here. And why not? It doesn't mean to go back there and just living there will benefit Iraq in a way. Another thing is we have to think. People thinking. Someone here commented, "I go back there. It should be the same standard as here." When you go back there, you have to think the people there, they don't care that much about people coming from other country, want to teach them or want to tell them that they are actually better than them. The Iraqis themselves, and I've been now, the last month I was in Iraq in a kind of holiday, but this time I was able to talk to a lot of people. And the thing is, you see them thinking we are a third world generation. They think it, they say it. I have iPad, I have iPhone, but I can't use it properly. And I have the modern stuff maybe, I have the money, but they have it in their mind, they are third generation. And when someone coming from the European country and telling them, I have this freedom, now come, I'm gonna teach you something, they are not gonna like it. Who are you to come and tell me that I already know that I'm already bad, and then you wanna gonna tell me you're better? But I do agree that we can, in a way, generation, my opinion, I have a duty towards Iraq. Maybe I go there, do a project, engaging them, teaching them how to themselves benefit their own society. Not going there being a politician or being someone coming from ahead, telling them what they have have to do. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you, Maad. Personally, I think that's an excellent solution, one solution to the problem. Sister, did you have something to say?
First of all, just to disagree with the brother that spoke, this topic or the form of discussion is far from boring. The second thing is, despite my earlier comment, I just seem to feel a lack of enthusiasm for the country that we originally came from, or our parents came from. It's fine to feel, I think, to go back to my original point, I think we need to either make a decision to stay here, and if our decision is to stay here, then we need to establish institutions. If not, then people have mentioned work opportunities. Things that are keeping them here is work. I mean, Shell, pharmaceutical companies have found opportunities in Iraq for work. I think there's plenty of opportunities for us to go and work there as well. People have mentioned staying here for da'wah purposes. There's plenty of opportunities for da'wah purposes within Iraq. I think we have this misconception that da'wah is only done in the West. Actually, there's many opportunities for in Iraq. The second thing, the next point is regarding the Jewish community. The Jewish community, we've mentioned a few times, they've settled here. What they've done is they've made a decision. So part of the Jewish community have settled here, and the ones that have settled here have built up institutions and become a very strong community. And other parts of the Jewish community, what they've done is they've actually worked hard, got their degrees, got the skills they require from here, from the West, and then they've returned to the occupied land. And that's what they've done. So I think we need to do either.
Yep, so make or break. Now, I'd like to pick up on that, if I may, and continue on that. So it seems like there's been a recurrent theme that basically some people obviously feel are yearning to go back to Iraq and are planning to do so, but by and large the majority seem to want to stay, and the majority seem to be of the opinion that there is a kind of state of limbo, perhaps, whether the brother picked up on organizations, the number of different masajid and other things, when we haven't got basic facilities for those who have passed away, and many other institutions. So now trying to move on from this, what do we need to do to get to that stage? Because it seems that the population here, by and large, are staying, but they're looking to the future, but not seeing much there. So how can we progress things? What do we need to do in order to think about the future, as the Jewish community have, and as many others like the Khwajas have done so? Can I bring that forward to the audience? Sayyidina, tafadhal.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Thank you for inviting me. I don't know if you give me the microphone. I will ask you to give me enough time to talk. I would like to ask you to pay attention to this important issue. This issue is very important now everywhere, not for you only as Iraqi. People start to talk about it, especially last few years, because of the problem we have of globalization. And people start to talk about multiculturalism, as you know, and about integration. And I would like also to let you know that this problem which you are facing is not the first time. Your parents also have faced this problem before. You remember some of your grandparents were Iranian or were Iraqi, and then they moved to Iraq or to Iran to live. And their children, we faced this challenge and this problem. And this problem also very well known at the level of other community, Pakistani community, Chinese community, at the level of American, Canadian, Australian now, everywhere they live this issue. And I think in this regard, very important to clarify some notions, some important, because I see from your talk, what you are saying, we need help to reach some clear definition. And that's why I wish to see some specialists in this regard here maybe. And maybe very important to seek consultation from others who are specialists in this regard. But I only, from my experience in other meetings, I have been invited by European Union for some workshops, especially after 11th of September. And you have heard in the news many times in this regard. We need to differentiate between where do we belong regarding the place and regarding the culture. I think regarding the place, everybody is accepting that we belong to Britain. This is our place, where to live. And I mean by place, what kind of regulation, what kind of law, what kind of services we need. And in this regard, at the international law, we don't have problems. And at the Islamic also teaching, we don't have any problem in this regard. Where you live, you need to watch the regulation at that place. Where you live, you need to look after that community. Where you live, you need to be responsible. And all those words you brought in your tea and talks, you need to bring it at that level. Whether we feel responsible, whether we love, whether we harm, whether this is regarding the place, all of you are Britain. Full stop. You don't need to have problem. But I think the problem is the culture. And this is, in this regard, nowadays, the issue much easier than your parents' issue. Why? Because we live now in the world of multiculturalism. This is because of globalization, because of multimedia, because communication. So there's no big deal to live in Britain and to have Iraqi culture. And it is not a big deal to live in America and you have Chinese culture. And if you want to stop me in this point, I will stop.
I'd just like to pick up on your points raised. Thank you. Thank you, Sayyidina. So, based on what the Sayyid points were about culturalism, retaining your culture and moving forward. So, which question did you want? Yeah. So, Abu Dhar was bringing up the point: why do we need specialists to decide where we're going as a community, and in order to move from this state of limbo? In terms of, I mean, it seems like both the points are in agreement that they want to move from this state of limbo, and retaining a culture is one thing, but how do we move forward from that state of limbo? And then we can address the question, do we need specialists? So can we ask the audience what they think of how do we move forward from this state of limbo and progress?
Bismillah. Problem with the state of limbo is that you haven't made a decision. So the first thing you need to do is to make that decision, and that decision is not on an individual level, as Ali Latif picked up on Twitter. The idea isn't that we need to make a decision as a community that are we going to belong within this society, or are we going to sort of remain as we are, sheltering ourselves and creating like a mini cities within ourselves, or mini Iraqs. So we need to realize either we integrate and we start looking out, as well as looking in and trying to improve ourselves, or we stay within this state of limbo, which is causing us basically to feel like we want to go back to Iraq, but we are waiting for the right moment, and therefore we are not going to interact with society, and we're going to sit here and sort of we're gonna be members of society, but we don't want to integrate within society. So, and even all our institutions and the way we work always sort of tends towards that. That's what our thinking is. And other communities have managed to pass that, and I think we need to start moving as well away from isolated thinking.
Is there a way that we can have the best of both worlds? Does anyone think we can do both? Well, staying here, integrating here, fully becoming members of British society. However, also satisfying that need to either contribute to our homeland or, keeping a tie, keeping linked. The other thing that the sister didn't mention about the Jewish community is that a lot of them actually live here, they have lives here, but they also have lives in the occupied land, and they come and go, quite often and quite freely. So, does anybody have anything to say about that?
Two sisters there.
Okay.
Abu, if you could just pass the microphone.
Assalamu alaikum.
picking up on what the brother said, I don't understand why it has to be one or the other. We can study or go to universities and integrate as part of society while keeping in mind that we may want to return to Iraq or wherever our home country is. Why does it have to be one or the other? We're not necessarily in a state of limbo if we are thinking about going back to Iraq. For me personally, I do have in mind that one day I might want to go back, but I'm perfectly stable here in this country at the same time. So why is it one or the other?
Do you not think there's a slight detrimental effect on society as a whole in the lack of progress that could be made if everyone had that opinion? Because everyone's going to be ambivalent to actually take the initiative upon themselves, because things don't happen by themselves. You have to take initiative and you have to take responsibility and you have to try and think in the long term. Every single organization or institution was started off with a few members, but they had long-term thinking. If we stay in that mentality of, it's true that we could go back and it's true that we could stay, but if we don't plan ahead, what's going to happen with your children and their children? And they're not going to have the provisions that you had from your parents, the understanding you had from your parents, and so forth.
That's what I'm saying. Why can we not think long term? We can still think about giving the option of going back, but we can also think long term in terms of our children and living in this country. We keep our options open. It doesn't mean that we're in a state of limbo.
I understand. So now, thinking on the long term, do you think we've done enough now?
No, we haven't done enough as a
So
community.
what do you think we need to do? That's my question at the moment. So, okay, let's move forward, and we've agreed we have to think long term. What do you think we can do to move forward long term?
I don't know which brother was talking about the centres. It's all very well and good that we have so many centres in the UK, but it's what we do with them, and I don't think they're being used as well as they could be. We have as much majalis in Muharram, alhamdulillah, which is very good, in Ramadan, but I think there's a lot more we could do. For example, the discussion here is a very good idea, and I think we need more of that because there's not enough for us to move forward. And
okay,
so
thank you.
you.
Sister next to you, I think, and then the next to you, the next to her.
Assalamu alaikum. Again, I agree with the fact that you keep mentioning the word limbo and saying that as if it's a bad thing, but we can take the best of both worlds, and we're lucky to do that. But we're living in London, which is multicultural, and we are used to all different cultures, and they're used to us. But what we need to do is, by taking the best of both worlds, Westernized people have good and bad traits in them, but the problem with us is we seem to unfortunately take only the bad and not the good from them. But then we take the bad from our side as well. We don't seem to be we don't pick and choose, and we have the ability to pick and choose because we've been brought up here to be able to do that. So to pick and choose their good traits and our good traits and put it together, I think we'd be able to bring up some good institutions and to, what's the word?
Progress.
Just to progress, sorry, yes.
Yeah. Sorry to say, when I'm referring to state of limbo also, I'm saying that, we all, or generally, there seems to be more of a consensus agreement that we need to do a lot more and that things haven't been done. So I want to know, what do we need to do? Why haven't they been done? Because sometimes the mentality of being ambivalent doesn't lead towards moving forwards. And I understand that the previous sister was saying, no, you've got to make the most of here and have the option of there, and they're not mutually exclusive, and that's a fair point. But what can we do other than generally taking from the West? What would you proactively...
Practically what I would do, for me, I don't know about anyone else, but I tend to kind of come into my shell and I can't come out of it, and I tend to get a bit scared from other cultures and from the Western society. I kind of just like to stick with my Iraqis. We need to start talking about Islam to other people as well, to other cultures, and try to get together with them as well, and not just to stick in our own communities. Because the more we start talking about Islam, the more it starts to progress and everyone else starts to understand it as well. We're not just a minority anymore.
So by interacting more with other
interacting
groups,
with other people as well, and just spreading the message of Islam as well, not to just be in our own little community and shying away from everyone else.
Okay, thank you for that. Can we have the sister next to you and then the sister in front of her, and then the one at the back?
Should we go to brothers and then back to sisters?
Okay, after this sister, you can go.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam.
I completely think that we should stay here, purely because I think looking at ourselves, looking at where our parents are now, what they've accomplished in this country, they've got a democratic state, they've had that for a long time in this country, they've got a perfect system and services, and I don't think that they have advanced as far as what they should. compared to English people, compared to the British that are living here. And so they've got these services maybe 30 years plus, and they still haven't advanced as much as what they should have. Now, let's go to Iraqis now and try and change them without the service, without these, without this democratic state in a way, and then try, and I don't think we can pick them up. We're too little, we can't pick them up.
Thank you.
And so why go?
Thank you. If we can pass it to the brothers, there's 2 brothers here, and then back to the sisters. I know there's 3 waiting.
Okay, thanks. If you wanted practical examples of how we actually integrate, because I don't think people fully understand the implications of staying here and integrating. It's not about status quo. As you said, we're not just going to mix with Iraqis. For example, the Salam Centre in North Harrow, there's a new project. It's actually going to open its doors to anyone in the local community. They can join the gym, they can go to the restaurant, they can actually interact, they can go to the prayer hall and pray if they really want to. I doubt they know how to yet. They can hire the hall, etc., etc. They are also taking part in a food bank. So, in the current economic climate, there's lots of families that are just barely scraping by. So they're banding together with local volunteer groups to actually open up the centre to people, to provide groceries for families that are actually, feeling difficulty. And I'm talking about all families, not Muslims, not Iraqis. I'm talking about all the families in the local community. It's about being relevant to outside of here. If Dar Islam today disappeared off the face of the earth, no one will notice, because it has no impact on its surroundings. That's what we're talking about. We're talking about real integration. We're not talking about meeting up every Friday with your Iraqi friends. That's not how we're going to sustainably stay here.
Thank you. No, can we go to the ladies again?
Assalamu alaikum. I just want to go back to the point of us being in limbo, and I really do think that when we're saying that we belong here and we belong there and we're in this limbo, I think we're kidding ourselves in saying this, because I genuinely believe that if we were to go back today to Iraq, it would be a struggle for us, and we aren't actually ever going to go back, because we belong to this country, we were born in this country, we studied in this country, and I think we're all working comfortably in this country. It's not something that we're ever going to be able to do. I mean, our parents are in Iraq now, some of us, and they're struggling. I mean, if our parents are struggling and they're Iraqi and they're trying to live there, how are we going to try and live there? And we've been brought up here all of our lives. I mean, the country is not established. We don't have electricity there. We don't have, we don't have internet. We don't have anything that we can possibly use there to be able to live there. Even in 50 years' time, I still don't think Iraq is going to be such an advanced country where we'll be able to go back there and live there. I think, honestly, we're fooling ourselves in saying that we'll be able to go back to this home country, because I think that we should just, get to grips with ourselves and just realize that this is a country that we're going to be staying in. It might be unfortunate for some, but we need to come to terms with it, and we need to be able to integrate into this country, as opposed to try and go back to a country that doesn't. The people in Iraq don't want us to go back because they feel like we're too advanced for them, and when we go there, we don't belong. So how can we say this?
Thank you, sister. Any other sister? There was 2 others, and then we'll go. There was one gentleman at the back, and then.
I think the problem with the community in London is we have quite a selfish mentality, because we're safe here and we have everything we need. We don't think about other people, like the people back home. And I think it's like, I don't know, it's a saying, like, anything that's worth doing is always a struggle. Obviously, we don't expect it to be easy, but why do we have that selfish mentality where, because it's hard, therefore we shouldn't try? If we truly want to help them, like Sister Ma'ad said earlier, the women there, they don't have the freedom that we do. For example, they can't sit and have discussions like this. Why can't we go back and help them, help this happen? Why is it that just because we have it, therefore we're nice and happy, but for the women back there, we don't really care? I think at the end of the day, there are sisters, if not in Islam, in culture, we're all Iraqis, and it's our duty to go back and help them in that way.
Thank you. Gentleman at the back, and then the one in the middle.
Yeah. Okay. I just want to agree with the brother at the front who said being here and integrating means going out and doing things for society and community in general. They don't have to be Iraqis, they don't have to be Muslims. And we as Iraqis, as I mentioned earlier, have minorities who are not Muslim. So we have to include them when we move forward. Once we do that, then we establish ourselves and mean something to this country. At the same time, we have to build our networking. One of our main problems is that we are very fractured as Iraqi community here. We are divided by either who we follow as a marja', whether we do tatbir, whether we are Communist Party, Islamic Party. We need to forget this. Our generation needs to forget this, because for our parents' generation, the time has gone. We need to network to help ourselves. We always look and say the Jews run things, they do this. That's because their networking is very strong. If I want my son or my little brother to do work experience at a certain place, I have to go and ask around and not get it at the end, knowing for a fact that there is an Iraqi at a certain place who can do this for him. But I can't approach it. We don't help each other.
Thank you.
And my final point is to help Iraq. We can build institutions here to help Iraq. We don't need to go there. Oxfam does its work from headquarters here. It doesn't go to Africa and put their headquarters there.
Good point. Iraqi Medical Association, another example. Can we have the brother in the middle and then a brother right at the back? Just to add on that, so it seems that there's obviously the local integration that we aren't doing good as a community networking. And then obviously, that's been mentioned a few times, which is the outer, wider community integration and building upon that, and not mutually exclusively to the detriment of Iraq. We can also build upon that to help Iraq.
Just very 3 points I want to make. Firstly, from the Twitter discussion, we can see there's the issue of tax that's been raised or risen on the Twitter fall. Just in reply to that issue, if we go back to 2003 and the time before the war in Iraq, and we see that 2 million people marched out in Hyde Park, and I was there, I was one of them, but this country still went to war on Iraq. And
can we talk about the issue at hand?
It's related. They still went to war and they still invaded Iraq. But at the end of the day, that decision came from 300 people in Parliament. So my issue here, my point I'm trying to say is, to integrate is important, because when you integrate, you can influence decisions that are made.
Thank you.
Second point is relating to us Iraqis here, back to the centres, is the issue of ownership and transparency. If we look at our centres, do we really know who owns them?
Yeah.
How transparent are they?
Fair point.
And a third point, very quickly, back to the sister at the back. I think she's a bit extreme in saying that we should never go back to Iraq, we should never do this. Recently I've started working with the government, so you see how the government is structured, very structured, and so what tends to happen is I said, never going back to Iraq. But what tends to happen is you have this feeling inside you, it's like a flame, I want my country to be like that as well. So there is that feeling at the back of your head. That's all.
Fair point. So lobby is one of them, and can we also go to the brother at the back? He hasn't had a chance to speak.
Assalamu alaikum. I'm going to stand up so people can see me. I'm slightly baffled and confused, to be honest, as well. It's a huge topic, and there are a lot of views, mashallah, and I'm very much encouraged to see a lot of people giving their views on this very important topic. Although it's been 9 years since the invasion, and finally we've sort of come together and talked about this topic. Probably takes us another 9 years to talk about something else. Anyway, so it seems that there are a lot of views. The way I see it is that you have one view which says, I don't think you should go back to Iraq, I think you should stay here. Sorry, I'm trying, because I'm not very clever, I'm trying to simplify things for myself. So summarizing it, saying out loud. So there is an opinion that says we should stay here, not go back to Iraq because we are comfortable living here, which is a very much respected view. And there is another view which says no, we should actually go back and help the people in Iraq because they are very much in need. And there is another view that says no, we should actually stay here, integrate with the community, not just Iraqi, etc. I think the most fundamental thing that we need to just pause for a second and think about what's our Islamic duty here. because all of us sitting, only me standing, we are Muslims, right? I don't think that thinking about Iraq before thinking about your Islamic duty is the first thing you must do. You must first of all think about what's the interest of Islam if I stay here, or what's the interest of Islam if I go to Iraq. And I think that's only assessed individually. I don't think we can, I disagree with my dear friend Ali Latif who says that we have to decide as a community whether to stay. I just saw the
brother, sorry to interrupt you. If, say, hypothetically,
ما راحت الفكرة والله راحت الفكرة.
يلا.
ما ادري شلون تشكل هاي الفكرة. ها؟ راحت الفكرة بس خلي بس اكمل لك. خلي شوي نجيب عراقي شوي ندخل عراقي. هو صدق احنا بدنا نحكي شو اسمه عن العراق وما نحكي عراقي. ماكو عربي؟
يلا عاد.
زين. والله راحت الفكرة على ابليسك. راحت الفكرة. Anyway, what I was wanting to say is what I think is we have to think about our Islamic duty. Our Islamic duty, you have to assess it individually. So if your Islamic duty is actually to go back, واحد يرجع إلى العراق ويخدم بالعراق هناك. يشوف بأي مجال، هو إذا مجال عنده اختصاص مثلا اختصاص بالاقتصاد يشوف هناك يقدر يفيد بالاقتصاد. فواجب الإسلامي مو الوطني، واجب الإسلامي وبعدها الوطني أنه يرجع للعراق، مو بكيفه. مو بكيفه. تحكي خليني.
So if on the other side.
No. فواجب الإسلامي، لأن احنا لا ننسى مقولة الشهيد الصدر رحمة الله عليه، قال واجب لكل مؤمن عراقي وعراقي، زين، أن شو اسمه يعطي لوطنه كل ما بوسعه، يعطي لوطنه من أجل العراق والإسلام، زين. فأنت مسؤوليتك الإسلامية أن إذا العراقي يقول يابا، العراقي يقول يابا احنا نحتاج فلان الفلاني، نحتاج علي الحلي، يرجع العراق يفيدنا بالقضية شيل الزبالة، زين، ما عندنا زبايل، زين. شو اسمه، فواجبي أن أنا أروح هناك. فالقضية ما أعتقد هي قضية كلش قضية رأي أم لا، ولو اسمح لي بابا هسه أجاوبك تريد تعارض؟
يلا عاد.
القضية I'm summing up. والله I'm summing up.
I want to ask you, you're saying clearly that it should be led by Islam and not by desires and inclination.
That's not what I'm saying. If you will just let me finish, I would have finished saying what I wanted to say previously. Is that I think it's, as I said, I think it's our Islamic duty. However, a question you may come and ask is, say, who says what's my Islamic duty or what is not my Islamic duty. أنا أخو مو راح تجي زوجتي تقول لي يابا روح ارجع العراق، يقول روحي بابا شنو انت ايش تعرفين، زين، مو هي اسمها Islamic duty، وينها راحت. It's not يعني it's I respect her view, but why should I listen to her view who says that she knows what's my Islamic duty. أو مثلا يجي لك فد عالم يقول لك لا it's your Islamic duty. I think it's all about individually أنت كشخصا أنت كمسلم you assess things. مثل عندنا بالشرع بالإسلام مثلا قضايا مثل الميوزك وأشياء وهذا، تيجي ما تقدر كل type of music تيجي تسأل العالم تقول له هاي حلال هاي حرام. أنت لازم تقيم كمسلم، أنت الله مطيك دماغ، وخلينا نشغل دماغنا شوية. الله مطيك دماغ يقول لك يابا أنت قرر هل العراق يحتاجك ولا لا. إذا ما يحتاجك ابقى هنا اخدم هنا، بس القضية الأساسية إذا تبقى هنا لازم تخدم هنا، واجب عليك تخدم هنا. The essential point is, I say this with true seriousness, is that it saddens me to hear أن ناس يقولون خلنا نبقى هنا وما أدري شنو. I'm not referring to anyone by the way، وأنا أكبر واحد مقصر. بس you stay here and you have to work here for the community. مو بس تقعد هنا تقول ها أنا ما أروح للعراق، هنا much more comfortable، أنا ما أريد أروح للعراق أبقى هنا، بس أنت كل شيء ما تسوي هنا. لا، إذا تبقى هنا you have to work here. إذا ما بك خير هنا تروح ترجع للعراق تخدم العراق. والسلام عليكم وآسف على.
And this was, Ashkorek, thank you. And this was the point that I was trying to get to, which is what can we do if we are to stay here and to progress. And Abu, if you'd like to.
يعني to stay here?
What do we need to do to move forward to build on the community? So we've come with a few
suggestions. There are a lot of suggestions. هسه مثلا أنا في دار الإسلام وسيد سماحة السيد أبو حسن يقدر يتكلم هذا الموضوع أكثر. هنا دار الإسلام صراحة ميتة، زين، غير برامج IMM ميتة دار الإسلام. هاي دار مالتكم هاي، مو صحيح سيدنا؟ ماذا أسمعك سيدنا؟ أحسنت. أي دار اسلام هاي مالتكم، ماتي مالتكم كذا، هذا doesn't belong to شخص فد واحد موجود صورته في مكان. شوفون بس شهيد الصدر موجود هنا، زين ماكو واحد في الصورة كذا هذا he owns دار اسلام. مثلا هاي دار اسلام مال do community programs in this دار، مثل الله يجزيهم بالخير IMM سووها. زين اكو other projects such as هاي مال محفل علي. You can get involved in the community. There's not an excuse to sit down and say I'm involved ولا اريد اروح للعراق بس اني عيشتي هنا زينه, because that's not the duty of a Muslim.
Shukran. Just final audience person, and then we have to kind of summarize because it's becoming time for prayers.
Hassan, can I just clarify one point? When we're speaking of limbo, just to clarify, when we're speaking of limbo, as individuals, it doesn't matter if you want to go back to Iraq or you want to stay here. It doesn't really make a difference. That's fine. It's the idea that the community hasn't made a decision whether it wants to go back to Iraq or it wants to stay here. And the way it acts, and and why is that important? The reason that's important is because the way it acts is going to be different if it's planning to go back or if it's planning to stay here permanently. And its effects, all you need to do is just take one step back and think, what will be the effect